and welcome to the channel. If you found your way here for the first time, welcome. I have a whole series of videos on Larry Ray and the Sarah Lawrence sex cult if you need to get caught up. The videos are all linked below. Oh, and if you haven't already, I'd love it if you would subscribe to the channel. I'm so close to getting 500. Well, in a move that I'll admit to being totally stunned by, Larry ended up not testifying in his own defense. I just can't even believe it. He seems like the kind of guy who would really want to get his chance to tell his side of the story. I see an appeal and eventual habeas corpus petition being filed claiming ineffective assistance of counsel. That's pretty much what every convicted defendant claims, because if they had had effective counsel, I think the thinking goes they wouldn't be in prison. But I'd be almost willing to bet that he claims that his attorneys wouldn't allow him to testify, and that, yeah, had he just gotten his chance to tell his side of the story, everything would have been explained. As it stands, Larry's defense lasted about 2 hours. 2 hours! I guess that's what happens when you've done things that are pretty much indefensible. The prosecution had spent several weeks building their case against Ray, with just a couple of breaks due to Larry's so-called medical emergencies. The little defense Larry did present made the students out to be wild storytellers who made things up and convinced Larry that they were out to poison him. His attorneys said that previous experiences had made him paranoid of everyone and made him easily feel as though he were under attack. Too bad for him, he'd been really stupid and had filmed many of his interactions with his daughter's roommates, which helped paint him as the leader of all the craziness. The jury began its deliberations on Tuesday, April 5th in the evening, and were finished in less than a full day, returning their verdict on Wednesday, April 6th around 3 p.m. Larry stood silent while the verdict was read. He was found guilty on all counts and faces life imprisonment. His sentencing is scheduled for September 16th. He was not out on any kind of a bond, so he was returned to custody following the verdict. His attorneys had no comment, but the U.S. attorney did make a statement saying that Larry had exploited them, meaning the students. He terrorized them. He tortured them. Let me be very clear, he said. Larry is a predator, an evil man who did evil things. Today's verdict finally brings him to justice. Isabella Pollack, who has been accused of being Larry's right-hand woman, so to speak, and of helping him perpetrate his crimes, is due to stand trial later this year. I'm wondering if Larry's conviction will lead her into taking a plea deal, assuming the government even offers her one, or if instead she'll go to trial banking on portraying herself as a victim in the same way the other young women were portrayed as victims, and are victims. Interestingly, Larry's daughter, Talia, who by most accounts also aided her father in his crimes, has not been charged. I'd like to know the thinking behind that one, but I'm guessing we probably will never know. For more than a decade, Larry controlled the lives of his daughter's college roommates after he moved into their Sarah Lawrence dorm. His influence seemingly knew no bounds. He convinced the young students to do work for him for free, to have sex with each other and sometimes with him, convinced them that they owed him money for wasting his time or damaging his property, and got them to pay him huge sums of money to make up for the damages. One of his victims turned to prostitution to try and pay Larry back for what she thought she owed him for damages she'd caused, including the incredible claim that she poisoned Larry, when in reality she had done no such damage and owed him no money. It's really hard to wrap your head around how these kids, well, adults really, but very young adults when it all started, got so taken in by Larry and his lies. But I think we have to keep in mind that people like Larry can pick out the most vulnerable to his scams fairly easily, while also knowing the ones who he isn't going to be able to con. Once he identifies those two groups, he can focus all of his energy on the vulnerable people and find ways to separate them from the people he knew would never fall for his crap. Once isolated, the vulnerable ones only have each other, and when you're in such a tight-knit group, it becomes really hard to question others in the group without fear that you'll be kicked out, and you've probably also been convinced that the friends and family you left behind will not take you back. I could go on forever with all my questions on this one, but truly, I'm not sure I'll ever fully understand how all this happened. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so let me know what you think down below about the trial, about the verdict, or even the whole decade-plus long story. Until the sentencing, or Isabella's trial, or Larry's next medical emergency, whichever comes first, stay safe and stay careful.